You spin to make the farm animal noises?
Sorry about Buddy.
I really don't care. I was just trying to be nice so he'd help us. I kind of like someone else.
Wow. So this is how I find out.
Buddy? You're a toilet?
A potty, and yes, I jumped bodies again when I was dying. If you thought I was full of crap before.
Why can't I quit you?
Why am I obsessed with her? She is so creepy. I want her even more now.
Bento.
Now, your primetime local news leader. Fox 22 News at 10.
The deadline is inching closer for the Maine Democratic Party to submit a new nominee for U.S. Senate after Graham Plattner withdrew his candidacy on Friday. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Grace Blanchard. This weekend, the party issued its call to hold a nomination convention on July 25th. Today, they announced the process by which Democrats in Maine's 16 counties will choose delegates for that convention. According to Charlie Dingman, chair of the Maine Democratic Party, each county will hold delegate nominating meetings on July 18th or 19th. These meetings will allow eligible Democrats to vote to choose the delegates who will represent their county at the convention alongside the state committee members already chosen. Every Democrat who was registered at the time of the June 9th primary is eligible to participate.
This process belongs to Maine Democrats. We've established clear rules, equal opportunities for all candidates, and a transparent process that gives Democrats across all 16 counties a decisive voice in selecting our nominee.
The Maine Democratic Party plans to announce the date, time, and location of every county meeting by July 15th. Anyone interested in serving as a delegate needs to file a declaration of intent by 5 p.m. on July 15th. The nomination convention will be held at the Cross Insurance Center in Bangor. The newest candidate in the race, David Costello, who was just on the ballot for the U.S. Senate primary, was out collecting signatures in Brunswick today. Costello ran alongside Graham Plattner and Governor Janet Mills in June. Costello received about 8% of the vote. He was out today collecting signatures from voters. Costello acknowledged he was one of the lesser-known candidates on the ballot, but says that won't be an issue if he wins the nomination.
Confident in my background. I'm just not confident in the amount of knowledge people have of me. But I think whoever comes out of the convention won't have any trouble attracting attention, press attention, or voter attention, and the resources needed to challenge Senator Collins in the fall.
Costello went on to say that he believes he could garner the same support as Plattner if he were to win. Quote, a vote for Collins is a vote for more of the same. That was the message from Democratic U.S. Senate candidate Dr. Nirav Shah during a town hall today in Bangor, as he continues his bid to become the party's nominee. While Shah may be a new entrant into the Senate race, the former director of the Maine Center for Disease Control and Prevention is already a familiar figure to many Mainers. Earlier this year, Shah mounted a bid for governor, leading the field in the early rounds of ranked choice tabulation before ultimately finishing second to Hannah Pingree in June. After Graham Plattner announced last week that he would withdraw from the Senate race, Shah moved quickly to position himself as a candidate capable of both uniting the party and taking on Collins next November.
What I am pledging and committing to today is to continue the tradition of open, accessible, and accountable governance, so that even when I am your U.S. Senator, that connection that we formed way back during very dark times does not get frayed, it does not get severed. And that is a promise that you all can make, that she has not been able to.
Since announcing his campaign last week, Shaw has begun holding a series of town halls across the state where he has emphasized his ability to both challenge political norms within the party and defeat Susan Collins in one of the nation's most closely watched Senate races. Shaw also announced this evening that he has already collected the 500 signatures required to qualify for the nominating convention. In other news, an Eastbrook man is facing several charges after authorities say he forced a motorcycle off the road during a road rage incident in Franklin, seriously injuring the driver. According to the Hancock County Sheriff's Office, a crash was reported on Blackwoods Road in Franklin shortly before 12:30 on Saturday. Police said the initial reports indicated the crash stemmed from a road rage incident in which the driver of a pickup truck intentionally struck a motorcycle, forcing the motorcycle into a guardrail. The motorcycle then lost control, left the roadway, and crashed. Authorities said the driver of the pickup truck, later identified as 43-year-old Shannon Abbott of Eastbrook, fled the scene. However, witnesses were able to provide deputies with the license plate number. The motorcycle operator was transported to a local hospital and then flown to another hospital for treatment. The sheriff's office says the rider remains in serious but stable condition. Police were able to locate Abbott and his truck. He was arrested and transported to the Hancock County Jail. Abbott has been charged with elevated aggravated assault, reckless conduct with a dangerous weapon, aggravated driving to endanger, and leaving the scene of a personal injury crash. The investigation is ongoing. The Penobscot County Sheriff's Office is seeking the whereabouts of an Eddington woman in connection with an infant overdose in May. The Sheriff's Office has obtained an arrest warrant for 36-year-old Brittany Wood, who authorities say failed to turn herself in. She is wanted on a Class B felony of domestic violence, aggravated assault, and a Class D crime of endangering the welfare of a child. The Sheriff's Office says her warrant is related to a thorough investigation of an incident where an infant overdosed on opioid in Eddington. That incident took place on May 31st. The Sheriff's Office said they've communicated intentions to arrest Wood to both her and her attorney, and now they're asking the public to help in locating her. Wood is listed online as a member of the RSU 63 School Board. We reached out to members of the school board and school department for confirmation and comment, but have yet to hear back. If you have any information on Wood's whereabouts, please contact the Penobscot Regional Communications Center. That number is 207-947-4585 to report her location. The Kennebec County Sheriff's Office is investigating a crash in Vassalboro that killed one person. It happened just before 11 Thursday night in the area of 1063 Cross Hill Road. Chief Deputy Chris Reed says when deputies arrived, they found a Jeep Cherokee that had left the road, entered a ditch, and rolled over. The driver, 92-year-old Reginald Dugay of Winslow, died at the scene. Reed says they are still trying to determine the cause of that crash. The Maine Supreme Court has rejected an appeal that sought to place a citizen initiative dealing with transgender athletes on the ballot. Secretary of State Shenna Bellows invalidated more than 1,500 signatures from 4 out-of-state petition circulators. The referendum sought to ban transgender girls from female sports. In response, Bellows said, quote, "Citizen initiatives are a powerful tool of direct democracy in our state, and Maine voters should have just as much confidence in petition integrity as they do in the security of our elections. This petition did not meet legal requirements for inclusion and therefore did not qualify for the ballot after our legal review," end quote. The Protect Girls Sports and Maine Ballot Committee say they disagree with that decision, saying in part, quote, the Protect Girls Sports and Maine Committee disagrees with the law court's decision and has already filed suit in federal court. 1,520 otherwise valid voters' signatures hang in the balance. We intend to see that process through, end quote. While advocates for Maine's LGBTQ+ communities say it's a success. Gia Drew is the executive director of Equality Maine, and she said in part, quote, "All students should feel welcome and included at school, including trans kids, who deserve the same opportunities as their peers." Today's ruling from the Maine Supreme Court Friday's ruling from the Maine Supreme Court clarifies and upholds Maine's commitment to ensuring that there's a fair and just process related to citizen petitions, end quote. Gas prices have reversed course and are starting to rise again. AAA says the national average for a gallon of gas went up 3 cents overnight to $3.88 after steadily dropping since May. They say the sudden increase is due to uncertainty about the ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran. Gas prices in Maine are still lower than they were 1 month ago, when the average was around $4.23 a gallon. Well, big changes may finally be on the horizon for the Bangor Mall property. Our Alex Schley has more.
After years of uncertainty, the future of the Bangor Mall property is moving closer to taking shape. Mike Cole, spokesperson for the group working to purchase and redevelop the mall, says they've cleared what proved to be the biggest hurdle in the process and are now just weeks away from finalizing the sale.
Due diligence, yeah, I mean, that's everything from inspecting the building. It's every aspect of the property, inspecting the building, the title work. We got the lawsuit in the mix.
Cole says one of the biggest takeaways from the process was the condition of the structure itself.
I think that was one of the biggest surprises, is structurally that building is solid. So, you know, there's things that need to be updated, electrical and HVAC, you know, the exterior, things like that. There's a lot of changes that's going to happen there, but the building is solid. The foundation is solid.
While the process has taken longer than developers originally expected, Cole says clearing the due diligence period is a major step forward.
We're moving on to the next phase. Usually if something was going to fall apart, it falls apart in the due diligence period.
City officials say the redevelopment could have a major impact, not just on the property, but on the future of the Bangor area.
It has huge economic significance because the value of the property had been $150 million and now it's down to $15 million. I'm really excited by the local investors who are working very, very hard to keep this deal going.
The group has previously announced plans to include condominiums as part of the redevelopment. Cole says they are working with architects to create more detailed renderings of what the future of the property could look like, with plans to share those images with the public in the coming weeks. In Bangor, Alex Schley for ABC7 and Fox 22 News.
Let's turn things over to Anna Conrad with a first look at our forecast.
Once again, feeling very summer-like out there. Temperatures in those upper 70s to low 80s for all of us, and it's just going to continue to feel very summer-like out there. Bit warmer for us tomorrow. We're going to be reaching for 90 degrees, but then we will be back into those 80s. Lots of sunshine out there for today. A few clouds rolling through, but nothing to worry about. And that will be the case for us overnight tonight into tomorrow. Some clouds rolling through, but nothing to worry about for us before we do have a slight chance for some showers and thunderstorms for tomorrow. Taking a look at tonight, though, temperatures falling into the not-so-low 60s.
Thank you, Anna. Coming up on Fox 22 News at 10, Maine Maritime Academy's newest training ship with welcome home to Castine this afternoon. We'll have that story after the break.
There's a lot to love about a Subaru. Find yours at Quirk in Bangor. Built on safety and reliability, lease Crosstrek Premium for $329 per month. Or lease Forester Wilderness for $397 a month. It's a Subaru summer. Find it at Quirk.
There are so many fun things to do in Maine. Now you can enjoy more for less. Check out half-off deals from foxbangor.com.
Located on Wilson Street in Brewer, Yoshi Japanese Restaurant, where you'll find only the best sushi, Asian favorites, and specialty crafted cocktails that will satisfy anyone. Try tatami seating for an immersive experience. Yoshi Japanese Restaurant, bringing delicious traditions to you.
There's a limited supply available. It's on sale right now. Save with half-off deals from foxbangor.com.
Imagine stepping onto your brand new deck, enjoying all the benefits of your expanded outdoor living space. Hammond Lumber Company can help turn that vision into reality. Visit any of Hammond's expansive showrooms and explore a world of possibilities. The timeless beauty of wood, the resilience of composite or affordable durable PVC. Railing options from traditional wood to sleek aluminum and contemporary cable railing. On-site consultation and delivery are available. Get started on your new deck when you bring your vision to Hammond Lumber Company.
Did you know Susan Collins was the deciding vote for Donald Trump's Supreme Court justices who overturned Roe v. Wade? And she voted to put more than 100 Trump judges on the bench. Because of Susan Collins, states are banning abortion with no exceptions for rape or incest. And women are dying. And she's still standing by it.
I do not regret that vote.
Tell Susan Collins, stop voting for Trump's anti-choice judges.
It's a hot leasing summer at Quirk Hyundai. Lease a 2026 Hyundai Tucson SE just $259 a month, or Elantra Hybrid for only $229 a month. Premium vibes, bold lines, and America's best warranty. Your Hyundai is waiting. Find it at Quirk.
After more than 2 years without its own training vessel, Maine Maritime Academy is entering a new era at sea. Today, the university welcomed home the state of Maine, a $330 million ship designed to transform how the next generation of mariners train. Our Alex Schley shows us why this vessel is considered a game changer for the Academy.
It's a happy day for Maine Maritime Academy.
The sound of celebration filled the waterfront in Castine Sunday, as hundreds of family members, friends, and faculty welcomed home the state of Maine, a 525-foot training vessel specifically designed for Maine Maritime Academy.
Train twice as many students at the same time, and Maine Maritime prides itself really on that hands-on education, that experiential learning. We still teach the old things, hydraulics, diesels, steam, electricity, the things that are intangible for any engineer, but we're learning the modern day ship systems, the electronic systems on these ships.
The state of Maine can accommodate up to 600 cadets and features a dedicated training bridge, navigation lab, 2 full-size engine rooms, classrooms, and a laboratory space, giving students the opportunity to practice the skills they will need before they enter the maritime industry. The vessel departed in Maine with more than 250 Maine maritime students aboard. The cadets sailed from Portland to Galveston, Texas, where they picked up 240 students from Texas A&M.
We did 3 or 4 days of lifeboat training down there. We sailed from there to Charleston, South Carolina, from Charleston to St. John's, Newfoundland, St. John's, Newfoundland, down south to Port Everglades, Florida, Fort Lauderdale, and then sailed north to New York City for the 250th anniversary of the country.
After more than 2 months away from home, families say they're ready to have their loved ones back.
Daddy's excited to go here.
Officials say the arrival of the state of Maine represents a major investment in the future of Maine Maritime Academy, helping prepare students for the complex, technology-driven challenges they face at sea. In Castine, Alex Schley for ABC 7 and Fox 22 News.
The Daughters of the American Revolution's Bangor chapter held a special event honoring local veterans and community members on Saturday. The organization consists of local women who are direct descendants of Revolutionary War soldiers. In Herman, they gathered to recognize veterans with quilts of valor, handmade quilts awarded to those touched by war, to thank them for their service and as a symbol and comfort and healing.
You know, myself and another female veteran in the chapter, and we were graciously awarded Quilts of Valor. It's nice to get recognition, you know, for the sacrifices that we made.
Additionally, they awarded a prestigious Distinguished Citizen Medal to Doc Goodwin for his work as president of the Maine Veterans Project. They also gave a $1,000 donation to that organization.
For MVP being an 11-year-old organization, to be recognized by such a prestigious and long-standing organization such as the DAR was very, humbling, very special, and it's truly amazing to show that people see what we do.
Well, for more information on the Greater Bangor DAR chapter, you can visit this story on our website. Thousands flocked to downtown Bangor to appreciate some local art on Saturday. The annual Summer Sidewalk Art Festival brought art lovers from all over the community to enjoy a wide array of art handcrafted by local individuals. The event offers everything from paintings to jewelry to live music, food, and much more. Organizers say the event also offers something for everyone and helps support small businesses all over the Bangor area.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's easy to forget how much fun it is to go out and just be around other people who are doing other things, and I think it's a good opportunity for that. We really try to cover all the bases, make sure that we have a really broad definition of what the word art is in order to help everybody engage.
Lundy says the Downtown Bangor Partnership will be holding another Sidewalk Art Festival this fall. Getting an inside look at being on a lobster boat off the coast of Stonington might seem far-fetched, but there's a retired school teacher named Captain Paula making daydreams a reality. Our Doug Banks has the story.
To take a step inside a lobster boat is to take a step outside the familiar, but it leads to a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and a lifelong memory, which is exactly the goal of Captain Paula.
It's such a beautiful area, and I really want them to understand what Maine is all about.
And what better way to figure that out than spending over an hour aboard a lobster boat, traversing through Stonington Harbor.
I'm going to give them an opportunity to experience something that they're never going to experience again.
That opportunity is provided by Paula Maxim, who before becoming the operator of Captain Paula's lobster boat tours, grew up on a Central Maine potato farm and spent 32 years as a teacher at Bangor's Cohen School.
I love being on the water.
So much so that 10 years ago, she got her captain's license through the U.S. Coast Guard.
And then that allowed me to have the license to take tours.
Then, in 2019, she retired as a teacher in a school and became a full-time teacher of Stonington in the lobster industry.
And those were built by the stonemasons.
Aboard her new classroom in Eastern 24, named Extra Credit.
And that's because as a school teacher, I never gave extra credit. But personally, I gave myself extra credit.
She leaves the town's public landing, where a couple eager guests learn a thing or two about a town.
This little small place.
Home to the largest catch of lobster in Maine.
We talk about the history of Stonington and the stonemasons and the architecture. We also talk about the different lobster buyers and how each lobster buyer is unique and how they pay.
She'll also show guests a thing or two, including the Mark Island Lighthouse and a colony of seals.
Those seals are a lot bigger than I thought they were. It was great. Paula had binoculars for us so we could see them.
But you don't need binoculars to see Captain Paula haul in 3 of her own lobster traps.
We got a lobster, we got some rock crabs, some regular crabs.
Alongside a free seafood dinner, they also got a free appreciation for one of Maine's cornerstone industries.
People go to the grocery store and pick up a lobster. I don't think they think about what it took to get it there. Unless you go out there, you don't have an appreciation for what they do here.
Lobstermen that's a tough breed, no doubt about it.
From June through September, people all over, from down the road to landlocked states, can still catch Captain Paula teaching wide-eyed students, just now from a classroom with a better view.
I thought the tour was wonderful, and the captain, she's a lovely person, and very interesting that she spent so many years teaching school and got into the lobster business. I thought that was tremendous, and we learned a lot today.
This is a working waterfront. This is their livelihood. So to see what all goes into it is fabulous.
We're small, local, little communities that have a big impact here on the state of Maine.
In Stonington, Doug Banks, ABC 7 and Fox 22 News.
After the break, we'll take a look at some national headlines. We'll be right back.
Purple Co is open and here to stay. Come join a growing community of like-minded people with monthly events, arts and concerts, daily deals, and the best products and prices in the state. Plus, don't miss Purple Co Bangor's annual party on 4/18. Now with 4 locations from Portland to Bangor. Come check us out today.
Chevy drivers across America will do a lot in the next 5 years. But one thing they won't do is pay interest on their new Chevy. Right now, get 0% financing for 5 years on all 2026 Silverado 1500 models. With no payments for 90 days. Because you've earned this summer. Now it's time to go get it.
Visit your Maine Chevy dealers.
Roto-Rooter has served the greater Bangor area and beyond for 35 years, offering plumbing, hydrojetting, snaking, descaling, video inspection, and grease interceptor cleaning services. For all your residential and commercial clogs, call Roto-Rooter today, 990-1234.
And away go troubles down the drain. Roto-Rooter.
Looking for a great glass at prices that don't break the bank? The Cheese House in Fairfield has you covered. From classic designs to unique styles, our huge selection of quality glassware is perfect for every taste and every budget. Friendly staff, honest pricing, and new pieces arriving all the time. There's always something fresh to see. Stop into the Cheese House at 5 Pike Drive, Fairfield. Great glass, great prices, and a great time.
Purple Co is open and here to stay. Come join a growing community of like-minded people with monthly events, arts and concerts, daily deals, and the best products and prices in the state. Plus, don't miss Purple Co Bangor's annual party on 4/18. Now with 4 locations from Portland to Bangor. Come check us out today.
You're watching Fox 22, Bangor.
Capitol Hill in mourning this weekend after the sudden death of longtime South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham. He died overnight, just hours after returning home from a trip to Ukraine. Fox News correspondent C.B. Cotton has the story.
White House flags fly at half-staff following the shocking death of South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham. His office saying he died overnight of a brief and sudden illness. He was 71 years old.
I just can't believe it. He was like a member of the family to me. It's very tough, actually.
President Trump says he spoke to Graham just hours before his death, shortly after the Republican returned home from a trip to Kyiv to meet with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
And he said, you know, I feel good, but I'm tired. He was fine. I knew him well. He was a fantastic person.
Graham, a close ally of the president, was elected to the Senate more than 20 years ago. He became a key figure of the Republican Party, known for his foreign policy work. He regularly advised President Trump on Israel, Iran, and Ukraine. Most recently, he announced the White House would support the latest version of a Russia sanctions bill.
I've never been more optimistic than I am today that we have the formula to end this war. My hope is to end this war through diplomacy, and the more leverage we have over Putin, the better.
Ukraine's president, who met with him twice in the past week, described him as a, quote, true defender of freedom and the values that make our world safer. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called him a patriot.
He was unabashedly for America, and he was unabashedly against the enemies of America. And he spoke what he thought.
His colleagues on the Hill echoed the praise.
He loved America passionately. He served us brilliantly, and he will be missed undeniably.
President Trump has ordered all flags across the country be lowered to half-staff to honor the late senator. In New York, C.B. Cotton, Fox News.
Governor Janet Mills has also ordered that the United States and the state of Maine flags be lowered to half-staff until 6 p.m. on Saturday, July 18th in honor of Senator Lindsey Graham. Mills said, quote, on behalf of the state of Maine, I extend our condolences to the people of South Carolina, end quote. In other news, the U.S. launches more strikes against Iran over an Iranian attack on a container ship in the Strait of Hormuz. Tehran has since responded with targeted attacks on U.S. allies in the Middle East. Fox News senior correspondent Mike Tobin has more on this story.
We're following new reports of explosions inside Iran as relayed by the Reuters news agency. The targets are hardware for launching missiles from Iran, and the explosions are in the area of Bandar Abbas and Qeshm Island to the northwest side of the Strait of Hormuz. And all of this follows the airstrikes that were confirmed by U.S. Central Command last night. The U.S. says sea-based and land-based fighter jets, as well as drones and munitions fired from ships, were all used in the attack. The U.S. says targets included missile and drone sites, naval capabilities, and sites used for surveillance. 140 targets were hit in this latest round of strikes. And this latest round of strikes was triggered by Iran firing on another commercial ship crossing the Strait of Hormuz. The ship, flagged out of Cyprus, was hit. There was a fire on board and damage to the engine room. At last report, that ship was immobile and stuck in the strait. A crew member, a man from India, is now missing. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth posted, Iran made a poor choice, and now they pay. Kuwait is now reporting explosions at border crossings and an oil rig there. The Iranian Fars news agency says the targets were U.S. missile launching capability inside of Kuwait. Meantime, Iran says the Strait of Hormuz is now closed. The U.S. says the Strait of Hormuz is an international waterway open to all legal trade, and the U.S. Navy is there to guarantee it. In Tel Aviv, Mike Tobin, Fox News.
As oil prices react to the latest back and forth between the United States and Iran, fingers are being pointed as to why gas prices remain closer to $4 a gallon than $3 a gallon. Fox Business correspondent Edward Lawrence has the story.
President Trump posting on Truth Social that the ceasefire is over, but his negotiators will talk with Iran. The effect, regular unleaded gas up 9 cents in the past 2 days. The head of the Energy Dominance Council, Jared Agin, says the president and Department of Justice are watching closely.
Well, I think what we're looking at is that whole supply chain, and so you have to look at each element to it. Traditionally, it is a very low margin area, but I think they've used the Iran war as a way to grow that margin.
He points to the Freedom Fuel Network around Philadelphia and in New Jersey that significantly lowered prices at 25 gas stations, which forced 320 stations in a 40-mile radius to cut their prices 10 cents a gallon.
we got that sharp drop in crude, you want to see an acceleration at the gas pump, and so there's no reason why it spikes up so fast, but then it comes down very slowly. We want to see it come down just as fast as it went up.
The National Association of Convenience Stores says approximately 90% of the cost of a gallon of gas is determined before the retailer takes possession of the fuel and after expenses, especially credit card fees. Retailers typically make about 5% profit. The executive chairman of the Electronic Payments Coalition says the facts are simple. Credit card interchange on fuel purchases is capped at about $1, regardless of whether a driver buys 15 gallons or 150 gallons. The real drivers of prices are oil markets, taxes, refining costs, and global events. The blame game goes on as the White House is watching the correlation between global oil prices and gas prices here in the United States. At the White House, Edward Lawrence, Fox Business.
The week-long preliminary hearing for Charlie Kirk's accused killer concluded on Friday. The presiding judge is deciding whether Tyler Robinson's case will go to trial. Fox's Kevin Uretsky has more on the story.
Tyler Robinson back in court Friday for the final day of his preliminary hearing. Utah Judge Tony Graff is determining whether prosecutors have enough evidence to put Charlie Kirk's accused killer on trial.
Effective immediately, members of the media shall no longer capture or broadcast any exhibits displayed by the parties during today's proceedings.
Judge Graff said the news media camera inside the courtroom could stay, but was prohibited from recording exhibits on Friday. It follows a violation from the day prior when a piece of evidence, which was meant to be kept from the public, was briefly shown on camera.
I think the judge made the appropriate ruling. There was no need to, going forward, take the cameras out of the courtroom.
Robinson's lawyers have previously challenged the reliability of tests on a bullet fragment recovered from Kirk's body. On Friday, the defense questioned a forensic biologist about the DNA techniques used in the case.
Were certain of the samples that you tested in this case degraded samples?
There was degradation present in some of the samples.
And the case has maintained nationwide attention. Since Monday, people have been lining up outside the courthouse, some even sleeping there overnight, hoping to grab a spot to watch the proceedings unfold. Court officials reserved just 14 seats for the public.
Showed up at 3 a.m. today for this one, still did not get in. I was 16th, and there's 14 spots.
A decision from the judge could take weeks. Oral arguments on the evidence presented in the hearing is set for September 1st. Kevin Uretsky, Fox News.
There's still more to come on Fox 22 News at 10. We'll be right back.
It's singles night on the 1% Club.
Where will you exit the maze? Emily got it wrong.
I got lost in the nipples.
The 1% Club returns Monday on Fox.
Warning, entering Keepsakes may cause extreme creativity. From gorgeous fabrics and cozy yarn to gifts you didn't know you needed, we've got it all. Dive into quilting, grab a sewing machine, or join a class and unleash your inner artist. Stick around for our mystery quilt projects if you love a good surprise. And yes, we have a fudge counter because crafting burns calories, right? Keepsakes, where your hobbies and your sweet tooth live happily ever after.
What is Spectrum Internet? It's the most reliable internet.
It's connecting with my followers out there and in here.
It's secure internet for you and your family.
It's keeping kids like us safe online.
It's Wi-Fi that stays on even when the power doesn't.
Staying connected no matter what.
So what's Spectrum Internet? It's everything you want it to be. Switch today at spectrum.com.
Keep your boat safe, functional, and beautiful with a Shoremaster boat lift from Hammond Lumber Company. Your Hammond sales rep can help you choose the perfect lift for your boat. Shoremaster's exclusive Whisper winch offers the industry's smoothest and quietest operation. Add speed and convenience with a Shoremaster lift motor. And Shoremaster's modular infinity design makes it easy to upgrade with accessories when you're ready. Take your boating experience to the next level with a Shoremaster boat lift from Hammond Lumber Company.
When the morning light hits Maine, start your day with a good morning, Maine. Craig Colson, Janessa Bishop, by your side, bringing the stories that matter statewide. Local news and the forecast ahead. Wake up informed, ready to go on ABC 7 and Fox 22.
Meta could be facing a major fine from the European Union following preliminary findings over its, quote, addictive designs. Fox Business correspondent Connor Hansen has more from Washington.
In another setback for Meta, the European Union now accuses the company of breaching its social media law. In preliminary findings, the European Commission says Meta is not doing enough to protect users from the physical and mental harms of its platform's addictive designs. The group is asking for features such as autoplay of videos and infinite scroll to be disabled so they are not turned on by default. If the findings are confirmed, Meta could be liable to pay a fine worth up to 6% of its global annual revenue. In a statement, Meta says it disagrees with the findings, adding in part, quote, "Since this investigation began, we rolled out teen accounts that automatically protect teens and put parents in control, allowing them to block access to Instagram at night and cap daily screen time at just 15 minutes. The investigation is part of a global crackdown on youth social media safety. In a court filing this week, Meta says 4 states are seeking $1.4 trillion in penalties in a trial next month, while separately Australia is ramping up its enforcement of an under-16 social media ban.
We're working on that as a priority because this is something that other generations didn't have to deal with.
President Trump has previously criticized the EU for going after American tech companies and threatened a 100% tariff if the bloc follows through with a digital services tax. In Washington, Connor Hansen, Fox Business.
In Boston Harbor, the celebration of the country's 250th birthday is coming to a close with a display of ships that have traveled to the area from around the world. The parade of sail got underway on Saturday morning. Fox's Alyssa Azara takes a look.
Anytime you can pull together dozens of historic vessels from multiple continents, it is a historic occurrence and gathering of maritime vessels and seafaring ships that have helped navigate the world as we know it.
60 tall ships and maritime vessels from around the globe sailing across Boston Harbor Saturday. It's a breathtaking and historic view that doesn't happen too often. As the Navy jets fly over the tall ships, a packed crowd on Castle Island eagerly watches the parade of sail, a final celebration of America's 250th birthday.
To get here to Boston Harbor, to get to this point, to be welcomed by the people of Boston. We just went past Castle Island, which was packed. I mean, there's people everywhere.
Large crowds of boats in the harbor also taking in the spectacular views as the United States Coast Guard Eagle meets up with the USS Constitution. The crew on board standing tall and the cadets high up in the sky, with smaller vessels in the rear view. Boston is the 5th and final stop of Sail 250, and it's an event that's been years in the making for Sail Boston.
It really puts in bold that Boston is a world-class city that welcomes everyone from around the world to come on in and enjoy this great world-class city that we all love.
And if you're heading down to Boston anytime soon, some of the ships will also be available for free tours throughout the week. In Boston, Massachusetts, I'm Alyssa Azara.
All right, folks, Anna Conrad is in next with our full 5-day forecast.
Dreaming of a new garage or custom build? Patriot Landscaping and Construction delivers from frame to finish. Expert craftsmanship, durable designs, and quality you can trust, we get it done right. Call Patriot Landscaping and Construction today. Let's build your future together.
Are your basement walls bowing, crumbling, or failing? Hi, I'm Tony Hafford with TC Hafford Basement Systems. All things basementy. Our Stable Lock Wall System offers a patented, affordable, and permanent solution to save your foundation walls. It stabilizes, fills voids, and structurally repairs, leaving a new smooth surface. All the strength of new walls. Call TC Hafford Basement Systems today for all things basementy.
Carpets looking tired, stained, or just plain dirty?
It's time to call the pros. At C&R Carpet Cleaning, we use deep steam technology to remove dirt, odors, pet hair, and allergens fast. Fresh, clean carpets, healthier home. That's the C&R promise. Visit our Facebook page for a free estimate or call us today, 631-7380. Step into clean with C&R Carpet Cleaning.
Chevy drivers across America will do a lot in the next 5 years. But one thing they won't do is pay interest on their new Chevy. Right now, get 0% financing for 5 years on all 2026 Silverado 1500 models. With no payments for 90 days. Because you've earned this summer. Now it's time to go get it.
Visit your main Chevy dealers.
Dreaming of a new garage or custom build? Patriot Landscaping and Construction delivers from frame to finish. Expert craftsmanship, durable designs, and quality you can trust, we get it done right. Call Patriot Landscaping and Construction today. Let's build your future together.
Fox Monday, the Harlem Globetrotters get dunked.
I can't swim. Release the ball.
The Quiz with Balls returns Monday on Fox.
Very summer-like out there today. Temperatures back into those upper 70s and low 80s. Now, taking a look forward, we are looking at very similar temperatures again tomorrow. Bit warmer than we were at today, and even warmer weather on the way for us on Tuesday. We're looking at close to 90 to reaching for 90 on Tuesday. Here in town, we're looking at 93 degrees on Tuesday, back into the upper 80s for Wednesday, cooling into those mid 80s on Thursday, but back right near average into this weekend. Now, not only are we dealing with heat, we are dealing with some humidity as well. We're taking a look. Humidity is going to climb for us into our Tuesday and Wednesday before falling Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, making a nice weekend. Now, we do have a few chances for showers and thunderstorms this week, starting with tomorrow. However, right now, lots of sunshine out there, few clouds starting to roll through the area. However, nothing to worry about. We see this action going on up in Canada. That's going to pull to the south. However, we're only going to receive a chance for showers and thunderstorms. Many of these will be light. However, we do still have that chance for tomorrow. Taking a look for tonight, few clouds rolling through. Otherwise, we'll be fine overnight tonight. A chance for some showers and thunderstorms for tomorrow into Tuesday. And then we have more chances for showers and thunderstorms in our northern counties up towards Presque Isle on Tuesday afternoon into Tuesday evening. Many of us will get in on the action for showers and thunderstorms. Looking ahead, it's going to be a little bit more of an active week than we have seen. We have a few more chances for showers and thunderstorms these next couple of days for us leading into this weekend. This weekend does look to stay dry, though, into Friday into our Saturday for us. Now for tonight, partly cloudy skies, temperatures back into those upper 50s for tomorrow. Partly cloudy skies once again. Not all of us will get wet, but we do have a few scattered showers and thunderstorms for tomorrow. Temperatures back into those upper 80s. Taking a look at your extended forecast. Chances for showers and thunderstorms tomorrow. Temperatures in those upper 80s. Low to mid 90s for us on Tuesday. Slight shower and thunderstorm chance, upper 80s on Wednesday with mostly sunny skies. Mid 80s return for us on Thursday with a chance for showers and thunderstorms before Friday. Right back near 80 degrees with partly cloudy skies.
Coming up is sports with Max Sturm. Don't go away.
There's a lot to love about a Subaru. Find yours at Quirk in Bangor. Built on safety and reliability, lease Crosstrek Premium for $329 per month. Or lease Forester Wilderness for $397 a month. It's a Subaru summer. Find it at Quirk.
Lights, camera, cheese! The Cheese House is looking for its next star, and it could be you. If you're 21 or older, enter for your chance to appear in the next commercial. Stop by the Cheese House at 5 Pike Drive in Fairfield to enter. While you're there, browse their huge selection of glassware and 420 specialty foods. but we have the cheese. Remember, entries are happening in person at the Cheese House, 5 Pike Drive in Fairview. Bring your personality, bring your smile, and we have the cheese.
Happy Endings in downtown Bangor. This is where a delicious dinner meets a great drink. From the first bite to the last, Happy Endings serves the kind of meal you don't rush. And behind the bar, smooth, crisp drinks made just right. Perfect for date night, a night out, or your new favorite stop downtown. Happy Endings, 32 Main Street, Bangor. Open 7 days a week. Follow us on Facebook for specials and events.
It's a hot leasing summer at Quirk Hyundai. Lease a 2026 Hyundai Tucson SE just $259 a month, or Elantra Hybrid for only $229 a month. Premium vibes, bold lines, and America's best warranty. Your Hyundai is waiting. Find it at Quirk.
Welcome back, guys. Let's go.
Fox Wednesday. Don't miss the return of the top 16.
It looks like a brownie from a bake sale.
MasterChef Global Gauntlet returns this Wednesday on Fox.
I'm joined alongside by Adam Gaudreau, the athletic director at Dexter Regional High School. Adam, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So we're going to get right into it. Believe it or not, it's been almost a year since you guys in Dexter finished 3rd place in the T-Mobile Friday Night Lights sweepstakes. And that was just a crazy time for you guys. A lot has happened since then. But I want to go back to last year. Just ask you about the event and how insane was it to kind of be a part of that whole thing and see a school in a town so small be recognized on a national level.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty surreal to be honest. You know, when we get the call and said that we were a finalist for the T-Mobile Friday Night Lights sweepstakes, it was like, okay, well, what does that mean? And so they told us that we were one of 25 finalists. We get $25,000 right off the bat for just being part of the competition. That in and of itself was just an amazing celebration just to get the $25,000. And then after day 1 of the voting, we were in 1st place. So that just built the excitement among our small community. So we saw the support. We saw the people come out and jump online and put their votes in to support us. And yeah, we ended up 3rd place overall. We didn't win it all, but we did get an extra $50,000 for that 3rd place finish.
Yeah, you mentioned community and support, and I mean, I saw that firsthand going out to the event that you guys held. There's signs all in the windows in town for this event, just supporting, telling people to vote. What was it like to see the community just surround you guys and support you?
Well, I mean, it was just a bunch of excitement in the community. So we're a very prideful community. It shows that we support one another in our small section of Maine. And they just came out in droves to say, hey, we think this is a great opportunity. We see the need. Let's try to make it happen. And we had alumni from all across the country jumping on and voting and sharing their support online. So that just felt really good coming from a small community in Maine.
And the support was really felt. You guys finished in 3rd place. You got $75,000. We'll get to the later investments later on in this show, but with that $75,000, what did that money alone do for the athletics programs over at Dexter?
Well, I mean, our number 1 goal when we started out and we were, campaigning for support was to put lights on our football field and our athletic facility there. We never had lights in the school's history on that field, so that was our number 1 priority, and we wanted to see that through. Now that $75,000 was some seed money, helped us get a conceptual design done for a field upgrade, where the poles would have to go, met with Musco Lighting, who we ended up going with and contracting with to order the lights. And so it just helped us get things started, and it helped us springboard into a fundraising campaign. We saw the support when all it cost was a vote. We were hoping that support was there when it cost a little bit more, and it's shown that has been the case.
Yeah, expand on that a little bit, because obviously you guys didn't win the whole thing and get the lights, but you guys are still putting lights in anyway. How did that come to be? What more support did you need from the community?
Sure. $75,000 is a lot of money from the T-Mobile campaign, but it's not enough to put lights in. So we knew that going forward, so we knew we were going to have to do something to raise the rest of the funds. And so we started this fundraising campaign, reaching out to our alumni, reaching out to businesses, local businesses, families and friends to say, hey, can you support us with a little bit of monetary values? So we instituted a donor wall. So we had levels that people could donate and be recognized on our donor wall when this came to fruition. And so with all that being said, we had an end goal of $250,000, which is what we thought it would cost to purchase the lights and install the lights, which is pretty accurate based on current costs and right now. So with that being said, we've pretty much raised the $250,000 to make this happen. And the lights were purchased, they were delivered yesterday. So it was exciting to see that truck roll in from Musco Lighting and the lights being taken off the truck. Holes were drilled yesterday and today. So things are moving and shaking, and we're going to have lights up by the end of July, it looks like.
Yeah, I can't imagine just how excited you are, the student athletes, and the whole community is to finally have some Friday night lights. So you mentioned the end of July is probably when it's going to be done. Will we see Friday night football at Dexter this year for the first time ever?
So I will be honest with you, I've been kind of bullheaded about this. I said we're going to have Friday night lights. We're going to have Friday night games this coming fall, so I made sure that there were Friday night games on our schedule for the fall season.
We are super excited about that. I'm really excited to get out there this fall and cover that and bring it to the Sports Blitz. But right now, though, that's Adam Gaudreau. I'm Max Sturm. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be right back after the break.
Purple Co is open and here to stay. Come join a growing community of like-minded people with monthly events, arts and concerts, daily deals, and the best products and prices in the state. Plus, don't miss Purple Co Bangor's annual party on 4/18. Now with 4 locations from Portland to Bangor. Come check us out today.
Hank's Husqvarna is your trusted full-line Husqvarna dealer, offering you everything you need for your outdoor projects. From high-performance lawn tractors and zero-turn mowers to chainsaws, trimmers, battery-powered, and powerful snowblowers, we have just what you need. Every piece of equipment is fully set up, serviced, and ready for use by our certified Husqvarna technician. And all sales are backed by our in-house Husqvarna warranty. For parts, service, or new equipment sales, make your way to Hank's Husqvarna in Carmel or Newport.
Did you know Susan Collins was the deciding vote for Donald Trump's Supreme Court justices who overturned Roe v. Wade? And she voted to put more than 100 Trump judges on the bench. Because of Susan Collins, states are banning abortion with no exceptions for rape or incest. And women are dying. And she's still standing by it.
I do not regret that vote.
Tell Susan Collins, stop voting for Trump's anti-choice judges.
Roto-Rooter has served the greater Bangor area and beyond for 35 years, offering plumbing, hydrojetting, snaking, descaling, video inspection, and grease interceptor cleaning services. For all your residential and commercial clogs, call Roto-Rooter today, 990-1234.
And away go troubles down the drain. Roto-Rooter.
The right dock should fit your shoreline and make life on the water easier, more rewarding, and more fun. When you choose Shoremaster from Hammond Lumber Company, you get all that, along with unmatched strength, versatility, and style. Shoremaster's tool-free Infinity Track system makes adding accessories a breeze. Hammond also offers polydock floating docks, perfect for deep or fluctuating waters. Transform your waterfront into your personal paradise with a Shoremaster Infinity Dock system or floating polydock system from Hammond Lumber Company.
Purple Co is open and here to stay. Come join a growing community of like-minded people with monthly events, arts and concerts, daily deals, and the best products and prices in the state. Plus, don't miss Purple Co Bangor's annual party on 4/18. Now with 4 locations from Portland to Bangor. Come check us out today.
You got the MLB All-Star Game in Philadelphia. This is how America celebrates a birthday. Coverage begins Tuesday at 6:30 Eastern on Fox.
A unique collaboration between 2 Central Maine nonprofits is helping give the next generation of Mainers the tools they need to succeed both in and out of the classroom. This summer, the United Way is partnering with the University of Maine at Farmington to launch Career Access Through National Service and Outdoor Education, also known as CANOE. The free program is designed to teach recent high school graduates valuable life and career skills. In addition to gaining hands-on experience, students will also earn 9 credits towards a degree.
CANOE does such an amazing job of making sure that when we're sending people out into the workforce, they have both the information to make decisions, but also the skills to execute on those things. And I think that's been one of the greatest parts about this partnership, is looking at how can we take industry, higher education, workforce development, and actually blend them all together to make one cohesive program.
Currently, the program is only being offered once a year during the summer. For more information about the program or to apply, you can visit our website, foxbangor.com. Well, 50 years ago, an era in Maine history came to an end when the last log drive in the U.S. floated down the Kennebec River. This weekend, the Skowhegan community came together to commemorate the milestone with a 3-day Log Days celebration. Our Alex Schley tells us what this weekend meant for those who drove the Kennebec.
I'd like to tell you this story, boys, about taking down the drive. Well, my foreman's name is Buster, boys. He also does reside by the banks of this river in Skowhegan, Maine.
This weekend, Skowhegan is looking back on that history as the community marks the 50th anniversary of the last log drive in the United States.
I'm going to see guys this Saturday that I haven't seen for 50 years. A bunch of the guys that worked on the drive are still alive. We're going to get together and be in the parade at Skowhegan, so it's going to be a lot of fun. It was a great bunch of men that I worked with, good guys, country people, people from rural Maine, hard workers.
For generations, log drivers were the backbone of Maine's timber industry, moving millions of trunks downriver to paper and sawmills across the state.
The environmental movement was quite strong at that time, and a lot of people felt that the wood polluted the river.
In 1971, the Maine legislature passed a law requiring log drives to end come the fall of 1976. Effectively bringing to an end a way of life that had come to define Maine's rivers.
I wasn't pleased. I liked the job.
It was his favorite job and his first job. David started working the drive as a junior in high school, making $1 an hour and putting in 55-hour weeks alongside his father and brother.
And I ended up working there for 10 years until the drive ended in 1976.
On November 16th of that year, the last logs were pulled from the Kennebec, marking the end of log driving not only in Maine, but across the country. David says he anticipates this weekend will be reminiscent of his last days on the Kennebec, which he wrote the song Last Drive about 50 years ago.
Every one of us knows this is the last time we'll take her down.
In Skowhegan, Alex Schley for ABC 7 and Fox 22 News.
Such a neat part of Maine's history. Well, that's all for tonight. I'm Grace Blanchard, and from everyone here at Fox 22 News at 10, thank you for watching. We'll be back here tomorrow morning for Good Morning Maine. Good night, everyone.
How many times has something broke down, but the right size tool is nowhere to be found? What you need is Red Dog, the amazing universal socket tool that fits, grips, and tightens virtually any fastener. And now may be your last chance to get one before they're gone. Look at all the different sizes and shapes, nuts, bolts, and screws. Any head will do. Red Dog grabs on tight and locks into place fast. It replaces hundreds of different tools, yet it's smaller than a battery. 54 telescoping steel pins mold around any object. Then, up to 150 pounds of torque knock out rusted fasteners. Attach the deluxe drill adapter and drive screws into concrete with ease. Don't let a stubborn project ruin your day. Red Dog grabs on tight. Plus, it tackles odd jobs with precision and speed. No more heavy toolboxes or guessing which size to use. With Red Dog, you'll never search or guess which tool to use again. Look, you could use a ton of different tools for this project, but we did it fast and easy with just one Red Dog. Amazing! You could spend over $100 for a socket set, or you can get the incredible Red Dog for just $19.99. But wait, there's breaking news. Red Dog may be discontinued due to rising costs and supply chain shortages. Red Dog is stopping manufacturing immediately. There's a strict limit of 3 per order while supplies last. You still have time to get your very own Red Dog, but you must act fast. Once the current inventory is gone, it's gone forever. The amazing Red Dog. Order now.
Call 1-800-709-0494. That's 1-800-709-0494. Or visit byreddog.com. So call 1-800-709-0494. Order now.
Let's go get this big money.
Know the song faster than Shazam and win. Feed Shazam returns July 28th on Fox.
You're watching Fox 22 Bangor.
Previously on the